When you're just starting out, it doesn't make sense to shell out the big bucks for a custom high-end website, but you do need a website. This leaves you tasked with the job to do it yourself, but just because you do it yourself, that doesn't mean that it has to look unprofessional. Let's go over 7 mistakes that you can avoid when designing your website. Hi, I'm Alli, and I help emerging entrepreneurs like you level up your business online with a brand and a website that stands out to your dream clients. But you want to make sure that you stand out in a good way and not a bad one, right? So what's the difference between a pro-looking website and one that's obviously from a newbie? What it comes down to is all about paying attention to the details. Let's have a look at some of the most common mistakes that DIYers make that you can fix ASAP. Number 1 is a static, boring website. Have you ever noticed that some websites are more fluid while others are more static, and that the ones that flow seem to be so much more engaging? Well, there are a few things that you can do to break out of that boring, boxy look that you often see on the web. You can use less sections by combining the like ones together. So if you have an introduction to your services section, for example, rather than breaking these apart into individual sections, put them together to create a more unified look on the page. Another thing you can do is vary the heights of the sections on the page. Using the same height for your sections down the entire page makes for a really boring look. You can easily make your page more interesting by changing up the section heights to add an element of surprise to your viewer. A good way to do this is to break up long sections of text into smaller sections, bullet points, or callouts, and use them to create short sections in between longer ones. When you use hard lines, there are harsh breaks in between your page elements, but you can make your page flow more easily with the use of background gradients or graphics and by adding in overlapping elements. Number 2, there's a lack of hierarchy. If everything on the page is the same size, then nothing stands out. But by making elements that are more important larger than other ones on the page, you can help to direct your viewer's eye toward those elements rather than having them glaze over the entire site. You can create hierarchy with images you use with your headings and call out text. Another important thing to remember is to create hierarchy with your calls to action. You should have one main thing that you want your dream client to do on each page, so make that call to action stand out the most. You can use a secondary style for your other calls to action so that they stand out, but not as much as your primary call to action does. Number 3 is that you're using random styles. DIYers often get really excited to use a bunch of different features and styles on a single page, but this can be really distracting to the viewer. It's absolutely true what they say, that less equals more. When you create a style, maybe a background style, a section divider, or an animation, for example, you wouldn't want to use totally different styles all down the page. Instead, you want to repeat that same style once or twice to create a more unified and cohesive look to your page. Just be careful not to overdo any specific effect. You want to create an element of surprise, but not so much that you overwhelm your viewer. Number 4 is a poor use of color. If everything stands out on the page, then nothing stands out. You can use colors to create hierarchy on the page as well. If all of your colors are bold, for example, your eyes have nowhere to rest. This is why I teach my students how to create a 5-color palette for their brands that includes a really light neutral. By using a very light background color like this, you're able to define an area, but in a more subtle way. Number 5 is an overuse of image styles. Your images can create a unique atmosphere on your website, but if you use images that have a bunch of different styles, that atmosphere will appear really mismatched. So make it your goal to find or to create a set of images that works together stylistically. To do this, think about how you want your audience to feel. Images that have less contrast and more muted colors create a more peaceful and serene atmosphere, while images with more contrast and brighter tones will evoke more energy and excitement. content. Number 6 is poor alignment and spacing. As humans, we are really drawn to things that are balanced, and when something isn't aligned correctly, it jumps off the page, but in a bad way. It just looks wrong. Paying attention to the details makes all the difference when it comes to website design. You want to be sure there's equal spacing around elements and even margins above and below your sections. You also want to make sure that your line length isn't too long for easier readability and to create white space and a less cluttered look. You can break up any long blocks of copy into short paragraphs, even ones that are just one sentence long. Or you could turn text into bullet points, which are easier to read and digest at a glance. In general, you should keep your text left aligned for best readability, but when you have a small blurb, you can center align it to create more symmetry on the page. And number 7 is using too many fonts. The overuse of typefaces is a common issue on a DIY website, but by using too many different fonts, your design will become really complicated and very distracting to your viewer. You want your website to be easy to look at and easy to read, so choose 2 to 3 fonts at the most to use for your main headings, secondary headings, and your body copy. If one of your brand fonts is a display style or script font, only use it in short headings, never in body copy, because they're really hard to read inside of a long piece of text. Now, if you're working on improving the look of your website and you're ready to level up your business online, I have a free tool that I want to share with you. It's my 30 Days to Launch Playbook that will show you exactly what steps you need to take and in what order so that you can launch or relaunch your business online. Head over to free30daylaunch.com to get it. Before you go though, click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. Now let's go get them.